thank you everybody for your cooperation. Okay, so guys, I want to thank you for joining me and welcome to Real Talk with Ronnie. We normally start at 8 p.m. on Sundays, but today, given the fact that it is a makeup day for many Chinese, because as you know, the May Day holidays run from May 1st till May 5th. And as a result, there has to be some makeup work days, and one of the makeup days was today. So I myself, I also had to teach today at the school where I teach at, and I'm sure that many of the Chinese who are joining us tonight also had to work today. So that's why they've requested that I've pushed my show to 9 o'clock. But just so you know, in the future, this show will still continue at 8 o'clock. Okay, so welcome all to Real Talk with Ronnie. In my show, we have real talk, real news in real time. So I want to thank you all for joining us. We have a few more participants. Let me just let them in. You know, this Zoom, this is my first time to use this Zoom platform for this show. In the past, I used Tencent Meeting. It was the app that's launched by WeChat. But I find Zoom a little bit easier to use, except for the fact that I don't know why, when new members come in, I have to let them in, even though I've turned off that option in the settings. Okay, so I will continually be letting people in. Okay, so let's begin, all right? All right, so Real Talk with Ronnie. Sorry, there's this screen in front of me. Let me try to get rid of it. Okay, all right. So let's begin. So today is episode 4, April 26th. And just to give you a little bit of introduction about me for the new members who are watching today, I'm from the US, from New Jersey. It's a state on the East Coast. I graduated from Brandeis University, where I majored in economics and politics. And I went to Thomas Jefferson School of Law, where I got my JD. Afterwards, I came to Hangzhou. I've been in Hangzhou for approximately 7 years now. During these 7 years, I pursued my master's and my PhD at Zhejiang University in the field of Chinese law. Prior to moving to China, I worked in major law firms and multinational companies and in governments in New York City. All right, and these are just some of the universities that I teach at, that I currently teach. I currently teach at Zhejiang Suren Daxue. It's a university here in Hangzhou. I also teach at Zhejiang Chuanmei Daxue. So for all the Chinese listeners who are watching, and I teach a number of courses. I teach business English, marketing, and of course at my alma mater, at my law school, I've taught a law class. Alrighty, so welcome to my show, and just to give you a little brief rundown on what we cover in our show, we will go over the week's top news stories from America and around the world. I believe this is a great way for everyone who's watching, especially the Chinese viewers. It's a great way for you to learn English while learning about the top news stories of the world, right? And if you have any particular interesting news stories that you would like to share, I encourage you to share the stories in the group chat, and I will try my best to cover them. I know that for this week, a number of you wanted me to share a particular story. It had to do with President Trump and one of the advices he gave to the nation on how to deal with the coronavirus. And this is something that I will discuss later on in the show. So I'm very excited about our show tonight, because this is the first time. I mean, I've done this program for approximately 1 month now. So this is the 4th show. And this is the first time that we will have exclusive interviews with some of my close friends and, very professional people who live all around the world to get their perspective on the coronavirus that is, ravaging, or in some cases in their country. So we're very excited to hear from them. So just once more, just please remember, if you have any stories that you would like to share, please do so. This is our show, all right? So let's make it the best that it can be. All right, so at the top of the hour, this is what we always do. We go over the coronavirus pandemic that's happening in the world and in the US. So currently in the world, and these numbers were taken today. So these are the latest, most updated numbers as of today. So the total confirmed numbers of infected people in the world stand at 2.8 million. Okay, 2.8 million. And the total confirmed in the US alone is nearly 1 million. So, sorry, I'm just letting in more people into our meeting. Okay, so in the US, there is approximately 933,000, right? And I'm sure this number will continue to go up. Total deaths in the world, we have passed the 200,000 mark, which is a sobering number and is also very unfortunate. These are 200,000 people that otherwise did not need to die, but because of this pandemic, they are no longer with us. Out of these 200,000 people, more than 50,000 of these deaths have happened in the US. So the US right now, we are in a precarious spot, right? We have to deal with this virus as quickly as we can, but at the same time, you know, this is something that the whole world is also facing. So, you know, we are one people, we are one world. So hopefully at some point we will be able to fight this virus and, you know, make it kick the bucket, right? So this was how it was last week. So as you can see, the darker red parts are the parts of the country that are affected with 2,500 or more people. And as opposed to this week, we see that more of the country is turning dark red. And what does that mean? It means that more of the country is getting infected. So I think pretty much maybe by the next few weeks, it's very possible that this entire map might be dark red. So that's a very sad fact, but I think it might happen. So currently, New York City stands to be the epicenter of this virus. The total cases, and this is of last week, as of last week, the total cases in New York City, in New York State, was 236,000. Total deaths stand at 13,000. Now let's compare that to this week. So in the span of 7 days, in the span of 1 week, the total cases in New York have increased by almost 50,000, okay? There were almost 50,000 more cases of the coronavirus that were reported in New York. The total number of deaths in New York, as you can see, from last week until this week, it's been a difference of, it's been an increase of approximately 3,000 more people. So this disease is very real. This virus is very real and it's killing people every single day. So to all the people in the US and to around the world who don't take this virus seriously yet, you better start to do so very, very quickly. Because if you don't, you will likely affect the health of you and your loved ones. All right. So this is the situation of the coronavirus in the US and in New York. Now for the first of our 2 interviews today. So today we have 2 exclusive interviews. The first one is with Michael Boyd. He is joining us live today. He is from Australia. He's the Thunder from Down Under. Okay, he is a very bright guy, very, very smart guy. He's a financial guy. He works as an institutional banking relationship manager, and he's been in Hangzhou for quite some time. He's currently back in his home country, and we're very happy that he is here today to be able to share with us. These 2 interviews that I've conducted were pre-taped, but we have the honor and the luxury of having Michael with us live too. So after the program, if you have any questions, if you would like to share, Michael is here to share with us live. On the bottom of the hour, we will hear from my other good friend. She's from Germany, Ellie Lucas. She is a graduate student at Zhejiang University, where she is studying international affairs and global governance. She is, she's one of those rare people in the world where she is incredibly smart, but also incredibly gorgeous. So she is the perfect combination of beauty and brains, and we're very happy that she can join us here today. And in fact, we're very happy that both Michael and Ellie can join us. And next week, I hope to bring you more interviews from more of our friends from around the world. All right, so in this first bit, we will hear from Michael, okay? Good evening, Michael, and thank you for joining us today. You used to live in Hangzhou, correct?
That's correct. I did used to live in Hangzhou. I was there for a year in 2015, actually.
Okay, so can you please tell us, what did you do in Hangzhou, and just give us a little description and introduction about you.
Sure. So I used to live in Hangzhou in 2015. At that time, I was studying at Zhejiang University, studying Chinese language, and then I did a Chinese economics course as well. And that was part of my degree in Australia at the Australian National University, where I studied Asia Pacific Studies as one bachelor and Commerce as another bachelor. And as part of that Asia Pacific Studies program, I majored in Chinese language. And thankfully for me, my university offered me a one-year exchange program at Zhejiang University. And I can tell you, I had a great time there. It was a really fun time in my life. So, you know, I had to come back to Australia after that to finish my degree. But for that time being, it was really beneficial for my Chinese language learning.
Okay, great. Wow. So I know that during your time in China, you learned a lot about Chinese culture, and you are a really big part of the of the Hangzhou life, right?
Sure, you can say that.
Yeah. So Michael, can you please tell us, how has the coronavirus affected you and your family in your country? And your country is Australia, correct? Right?
Yes, it is Australia. So I currently live in Sydney at the moment. I was born and raised in Sydney. Both my parents were also born and raised in Sydney. And, you know, for the past 29 years, Australia's had unimpeded economic growth. We haven't had a recession since the early 1990s. So coronavirus is going to have a big impact on us. This will be the first time in 29 years that Australia goes through an economic recession. We even avoided it in that 2008, 2009 period when most of the Western world went through a recession. So recently the government's introduced lockdown measures so that you can't leave your house unless it's for a number of reasons. One is you can leave the house to go to the doctor. Two, you can go to the house if you need to go shopping. So, you know, obviously doing the groceries, going to the pharmacy. There are some retail shops open, but if you do want to leave the house, you have to maintain social distancing. So that involves staying 1.5 meters away from other people, and you can't meet up with more than one other person. So if I want to go, you know, shopping with two other friends, it's not permitted. It can only be one other friend. Okay. The only other reason you can leave the house is because of exercise. So fortunately for me, I've still been able to play golf every weekend, which is one of my favorite hobbies. And a few of my other friends also like to play golf. So that part of my life hasn't been affected. But for the past 5 weeks, I've been working from home. Most companies are now mandating that people work from home, and with only the true essential staff going into the office. Right. So yeah, it's had a massive impact. You know, I'm not used to working from home. The gyms are closed, so I can't go to the gym. Right. I can't go to the bars. I can't go out to restaurants. You can only get takeaway. So not only has there been a broader economic hit, but there's been a hit on my personal life and for my family as well. So my mum works for Virgin Airlines, and they've stood down the vast majority of their staff. So they currently aren't getting paid by the company at the moment. Fortunately, though, the government's introduced a JobKeeper program whereby they pay 1,500 Australian dollars a fortnight to employers in order to keep employees on the payroll. So my mum qualifies for that, which is very fortunate. On the other hand, my dad, who's a doctor, will be working in the intensive care unit during this coronavirus.
Is actually on the front lines of this coronavirus, situation. So, you know, I want to, you know, on behalf of the world, thank your father for, you know, being there and, risking his life while everyone else is, trying to be safe. So really, thanks to your father.
Sure. Thanks for that, Ronnie. And yeah, the thing with that is even with all the protective gear, there's still been a lot of doctors and nurses that still contract the virus anyway. So it just shows that even if you're wearing a mask, even if you're wearing all the protective gear and you're wearing the gloves, there's still a chance you can get the coronavirus. So it's quite, worrying for our, medical staff on the front line.
Okay. So, I noticed that right now it is Saturday night. It's Saturday night in Australia too, right? So with this lockdown.
It's Saturday night.
Right. So with this lockdown, how have you been keeping yourself busy during the weekends? Like, do you have friends over, or do you plan on visiting friends, or can you share with us a little glimpse into your social life?
Sure. Social life is not as abundant and fruitful as it was before the virus.
Right.
Because we're not actually allowed to just go to friends' houses. That's under the government guidelines. That's not permitted. You can only visit your friend's house if it's for necessary care, like they're feeling sick and you deliver them medicine. There is an exception for a partner, but otherwise you can't just visit your friends to go have beer. So my Friday and Saturday nights have been relatively alcohol-free. And
well, that's probably good, right?
It's actually really good for my health, and it's good for my wallet as well. But I guess it's, you know, that social interaction that you miss during these times. So it's been comprised of more watching movies, watching TV shows, you know, talking to friends on WeChat, talking to friends on, you know, all sorts of social media. So
okay, so just one thing. So in Australia right now, as you go out, you know, during your, you know, golf outings, and as you go to work from time to time, do you get this sense of urgency that we are in the midst of a pandemic, or not really so much?
it's interesting you ask. I think a lot of people are still yet to fully recognize, you know, that we are in lockdown. You know, especially in the very early stages, you see a lot of people still going to the beach.
Right.
You see a lot of people disobeying the social distancing rules simply because this is so foreign to them. They're not used to these sort of restrictions. So I think they're finding it hard to really grasp what's going on. However, I think as the weeks do progress, people are realizing, you know, if they don't do their part, this virus could spread even further. So thankfully, the vast majority of Australians are sticking by the rules. And as you can see from the results, we've actually suppressed the virus quite well. We haven't eradicated it, but the progress made so far has been really positive.
Yeah, and I think that Australia is one of the civilized and you know, Western countries that have really been able to contain this virus to a certain extent. So I really want to applaud the you know, Australian people for being, you know, vigilant. And one last question: do you have any advice for your fellow countrymen or anyone else in the world in regards to this virus? Like, how would you advise them on how they can live during difficult times?
Well, I mean, look, it's easy to feel down during these periods. It's very easy to feel lonely and isolated. My advice would be keep your regular routine. Even if you're not working at the moment, try and have a schedule or at least some sort of goal you want to achieve that day. Now, that could be going for a run if that option's available to you. It could be doing some weights around the house. It could be, you know, starting a new book. You know, I think you need routine, and you still need to set weekly or, you know, daily goals to keep yourself occupied. You know, talk to your friends and family more often. Message them on WeChat. You know, give them a call. Ask how they're going. Make sure you keep that regular contact so you know that you're not the only person that's going through this. Everyone's in this together. That would be some of the advice I'd give. And you know, keep hope as well. This isn't going to last forever. It will be over at some point. So, you know, don't be too dismayed. Just try and stay positive.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I think it's really important what you said, that at this time, during this point, we should try to keep a routine and try to keep busy, right? And I think one unintended benefits of this virus is that it's actually caused people who otherwise would not be in contact to actually talk to each other, right? So I think that's a pretty cool thing. Okay, Michael, so now it's Saturday night, and I'm sure you probably have some plans. Do you have any plans tonight?
Ronnie, I don't really have any plans, to be honest with you. I'm just going to be relaxing at home, and you know what? The good news is it's going to be good for my health, and then I'm going to look forward to golf tomorrow. So that's it for me.
Well, Michael, tomorrow night, as you know, this show is on at 8 p.m. on Beijing time. So tomorrow, after your round of golf, which I hope you win, if you have time, and I certainly do hope that you can tune in and you know, talk to us all live in person.
Sure, great. I'll be there, Ronnie. Looking forward to it. Thanks for getting me on your show.
Okay, thank you, Mike. I you know, really appreciate it. Thank you, and have a good night.
No worries.
Okay,
see you, Ronnie.
All right, bye-bye. And Michael is actually live with us here today. So, Michael, if there's anything you would like to add, please feel free.
Thanks, Ronnie.
Sure. So, is there anything you would like to add in addition to what you have stated yesterday?
Not much. Well, I didn't win golf today, Ronnie,
Oh, sorry to hear
despite
that.
your well wishes. So that's a bit disappointing. But you know, not much to add at this point. But if anyone wants to ask questions after, I'm happy to take them.
Okay, great. Just by the way, what is your golf handicap?
I don't officially have a handicap at the moment, but I'd give an estimate of about 23, 22.
Okay, well, whatever it is, it's still a lot better than mine. Okay, so I'm sure if I were to play with you, you would smoke me. So all right, Michael, thank you, and we hope to hear from you after the show. I'm sure there will be a lot of listeners and you know, viewers who are curious and who are eager to speak to you. Okay. All right, and Michael, once again, I hope you can join us every single week. All right, so let's start with our weekly news countdown. So first on our list, this is something that has never happened in the history of the world. Stocks crash as oil falls below zero for the first time in history. So can you imagine this? The price of oil, the price of crude oil, dipped below zero for the first time in the history of the planet. So what does that essentially mean? It means that for companies like West Texas Intermediate Crude, they would actually have to pay people to take their oil, because the share of their oil, oh, let me just let a few more people into the meeting. On Monday, right, the price for West Texas Intermediate Crude for May delivery plunged 305%. It fell 305% to a record low of negative, and we're saying negative $36.73 per barrel. And like I said, at a price below zero, buyers would have to be essentially paid to take delivery, as there are costs that are associated with the transportation and the storage of crude oil. Other major companies that have been majorly, sorry, I'm letting people in. I don't know Zoom. I don't know why Zoom doesn't just let them in. Okay, so other major companies that have been affected because of the coronavirus in terms of oil have been ExxonMobil and Chevron. Oil services provider Halliburton lost $1.02 billion in the first quarter and said it will cut costs by $1 billion. So Halliburton was a company that we heard a lot during the Bush administration, and I'm sure there are a lot of our liberal viewers out there who are happy that this company has lost a lot of money. But you know, I would say that overall, a lot of the companies that are in the oil industry are suffering right now. And why is that? It's because with this shutdown of the world economy, planes cannot fly, cars are not driven. So therefore, the demand of oil has dropped. And as such, we see right here, right? Sorry, I'm letting more people in. As such, we see what we're seeing right now, like the fact that oil prices has plunged. It's at negative $36 per barrel. So once again, you know, you can probably get a barrel of oil, or you know, you can get many barrels of oil for the price of a Big Mac. So that's the situation that we're in right now. Okay, next bit of news. So President Trump on Monday, he suspended immigration into the U.S. by executive order. Okay, so President Trump, he announced Monday that he will soon sign an executive order to temporarily suspend the immigration into the U.S. as he continues to fight the coronavirus pandemic and boost the economy. This is a drastic move by any measure, because I don't think any president in recent time has had to temporarily suspend immigration into the U.S., right? And of course, to the liberals out there, to our liberal friends, they will just say, this is just another example of President Trump's, you know, of his racism and his hatred towards immigrants, which I think is completely untrue. Okay, so this drastic move is in response to the 22 million plus Americans who are unemployed due to the coronavirus. So right now in the US, after seeing record you know, people getting jobs and working, we are suddenly in the process of seeing 22 million people who are out of a job. And that is a huge reversal of fortune, especially for President Trump, who is, staking his reputation and his bid to win his, re-election bid on the fact that the economy is the best it's ever been. So for President Trump and many in his cabinet and many in his party, the fact that there are so many people in the country that are not working is going to spell trouble. So that's why they're doing everything they can to try to curb this. And one of the measures that they have come up with is to suspend immigration into the U.S. temporarily. Okay, so the U.S. has agreed with both Canada and Mexico to extend the restrictions on the border for non-essential travel for another 30 days. So that means that if you are not a non-essential person that needs to come into the country, you will not be able to go into the US or to Mexico or from Canada for another 30 days, all right? And most travel, as we know, most travel from Europe, from Iran, from South Korea and China has also been blocked. So President Trump actually, to his credit, he was one of the first people in the country to block travel from China to the US. At the time, many politicians from the Democratic side said that this was a very racist move, and that once again he is xenophobic and he is showing it through his policies. But as we know, a few weeks later, Joe Biden, who is the Democratic presumptive nominee for president, has also agreed that what President Trump did at the time was actually correct, even though at the time he criticized it. But a few weeks later, he reversed his stance, and now he supports the fact that President Trump had banned Chinese travel into the U.S. So that's politics for you, right? You are only against something for as long as is suitable. Then of course you change your mind. All right. So next up, so everybody has always heard of a lot of shooting that happens in the U.S. This next story is about a shooting that has happened in Canada. Everybody always thinks that our Canadian neighbors are very nice, and they are very nice, the most friendly people you will ever meet in your entire lives. But this happened, and this was very, 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 very tragic. So a gunman disguised as an officer killed 22 in a horrific shooting. So the gunman is a 51-year-old person named Gabriel Wortman. He was behind the deadly Nova Scotia rampage, which began in the quiet town of Portapique on Cobequid Bay. He had disguised himself as a police officer, okay, and at one point was even driving a police cruiser. According to his neighbors, though, they had seen him purchase a couple of police vehicles in the prior weeks. The neighbors never asked him why he did so, but now, unfortunately, we know why. He purchased these vehicles in an attempt to try to fool people in his rampage. So the manhunt finally ended about 12 hours later, and at that time, he had killed about 18 people. Now, since then, a few more people have died, so now we're up to 22. And the people that have been killed have included a police officer, a corrections officer, and a nurse and a teacher. So it is tragic when something like this happens in any country. The Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, he has stated a couple of days ago that he is, committed to introducing a bill to ban all assault rifle type guns. And I think that is a, good idea, not just in Canada, but also in the, U.S. I do believe in gun control. I don't believe that any particular person needs to have like 20 guns. And an automatic weapon like the, like these machine type guns are, to be honest, not that useful in everyday life unless you do plan on planning a mass killing spree. I don't believe that these assault rifles are, conducive for actually hunting, because like the poor deer would be shattered. So so I think there is room for gun control in every country, especially in the country that have guns, and U.S. is one of them. Okay, so let me go back once more. Gave you a little preview of the next news. So just to finish up this story, the gunman had left a trail of 16 crime scenes across the Canadian province, and the gunman was eventually killed in a shootout with police in Enfield, about 60 miles from the initial crime scene. Okay, so next story. So this is a bit of an interesting news because I've asked my Chinese friends and none of them have heard about this. But multiple news outlets had reported late Monday that Kim Jong-un was in a grave condition following a heart surgery that took place on April 12th. Okay. However, South Korean government, they have said that there was no indication that there was any issue with North Korea's leader. So there has been uncertainty about this news story. But let me just say, up until last night on the New York Post, they had a big headline that said that it is rumored that Kim Jong-un is dead. But then today, on certain news sites, they haven't really mentioned this. So this is still a story that we cannot get our hands on, really. It's still up in the air. But one thing is for sure, he's definitely not okay, because the reason this speculation about his health came about in the first place was because his grandfather, the founder of the country, had his birthday celebration a couple of weeks ago on April 15th. And this is typically the most important holiday in North Korea. So this is something that no leader, actually no one should miss if you're in that country. But Kim Jong-un was noticeably absent from the celebration, which was why it sparked international intrigue as to where he is. So, you can't really be surprised that he has these health problems. I mean, he's a heavy smoker, he's obese, and given the fact that he is the leader of his country, I'm sure there's significant stress that comes along with the job. So, but this is important news for many countries, especially the US and China, because should Kim Jong-un die and croak, there will be a void in leadership. There has been talk that his little sister would be next in line, but given the fact that North Korea is a paternal country where it's very unlikely for a woman to be in charge. So in that circumstance, if he were to die, one of the likely scenarios would be that there would be a power grab, and who will come into power, we don't know. But one thing is certain: the people of North Korea, the citizens there, are famished and they're starved and they're poor. So if there is a power change, especially a violent one, there will be a lot of innocent people who will die, and as such, there will be a mass influx of these people to most likely place China, since China is their next border neighbor. So this is a big problem for China too. If this happens, there will be a massive migration of people from North Korea to China. So it will be interesting to see how China would deal with this if it were to happen. And of course, as we know, North Korea has had a very rocky relationship with the US. So if something were to happen where there is a change in leadership, we don't know if this would actually help the relationship with the US, or if it would worsen it. So this is something that we should all pay close attention to. All right, next up, Friday, the day before, it marked the first day of Ramadan. So to all our Muslim friends who are watching, wish you all a happy Ramadan. So as we know, Ramadan is a sacred month of fasting, prayer, and socializing that is central to the faith of the world's 1.8 billion Muslims. However, this year, Ramadan is very different than the Ramadans of past years, because given the fact that this is a month-long event where people fast and pray and socialize in one big group, a lot of Muslims are not going to these mosques because of the virus. So due to the coronavirus, tens of thousands of places in Muslim countries have banned communal prayers and family gatherings in an effort to stem the spread of this virus. However, in some countries, though, the clerics and the worshippers have still defied the orders of the government and have still met. Although public prayers were canceled in the capital of Indonesia, which is the world's most populous Muslim country, mosques were still packed in the autonomous province of Aceh. where clerics have ruled that prayers can still continue. So similar to what a lot of people have said, there needs to be a uniform message from the government. But aside from that, more importantly, this uniform message must be followed uniformly by the people, right? So if there are different provinces or different governors telling the people to do different things, that's not going to help curb this virus. So let's hope that everyone can be more cooperative with their government, be more cooperative with their leaders, and listen to the officials. If you shouldn't go out if you don't have to. In the U.S., part of the reason why this has spread so quickly was because during spring break, it's a big college season. It's a big time for college students to go party, and a lot of them did party, and as such, they spread this virus even more. So I would, this is one thing I would like to commend the Chinese public on, is that the Chinese citizens are, very cooperative. By and large, during the lockdown of China, you did not see many people going outside, and I think that was something that was commendable, and I think that was a big factor that led to the fact that this problem in China has really slowed down. So kudos to our Chinese friends for following rules. Okay, so now we are at the halfway mark. If we have any questions, I am glad to receive your questions. So do we have any questions from our viewers for either Michael, for me, or if you have any comments? If you have any comments, this is a good time to bring them up. If you have any questions about the past 5 articles or the 5 news stories that I mentioned, it's a good time for you to bring it up. So do we have any comments? If not, I will continue on to the next news story. All right, news story number 6, the CDC, which is the Centers for Disease Control, they have tripled the number of possible coronavirus symptoms. So other symptoms that they have added include muscle pain, headache, and now a new loss of taste or smell. So that means if you all of a sudden lose your taste or your smell, you may want to go see a doctor, because as it turns out, this may be one of the new symptoms of this still very mysterious virus. Okay, at this point, scientists have still not been able to get a handle on this virus, because to some people, they are asymptomatic, yet they can still spread it. And to some people, they completely die from it. And as we know, the majority of the people who have died from this virus are those who have a precondition, right? A pre-health condition, or those who are older. But for the majority of people who are within 20 to 40 or 50, they seem to be safe. But still, this is a very mysterious virus. So in the past, the CDC has previously listed 3 key symptoms, which include shortness of breath, fever, and a cough. So more than a quarter of 619 patients that were surveyed noticed that they had a loss of taste or smell as their first symptoms, okay? So other symptoms, such as COVID toes, are also being studied by doctors. Now, what exactly are COVID toes? COVID toes, as I've read, are kind of like frostbite lesions that would develop on the bottom of your foot. Iran launches its first military satellite into Earth's orbit. Okay, this could potentially spell trouble for the U.S. because, as you know, the relationship that the U.S. has with Iran has not been smooth, and in recent months, it's gotten a lot rockier since the U.S. killed the Iranian general Soleimani. So since then, a lot of the embassies of the U.S. in the Middle East have been on edge in fear of a retaliatory strike. So here, the launch of Iran's first military satellite on Wednesday has been deemed a success by U.S. Space Command. Okay? It's been deemed a success by U.S. Space Command. This successful launch comes after months of failures amid growing tensions with the U.S. The U.S. State Department and the Pentagon both say such launches advance the country's ballistic missile program. On its official website, the Iranian paramilitary Revolutionary Guard said the satellite successfully successfully reached an orbit of 264 miles above the Earth's surface. Earlier this month, President Trump has said that Iran was planning a sneak attack on US troops or assets in Iraq, and he warned that the country will pay a heavy price if that happens. So let's hope that the fact that Iran has launched this military satellite into orbit is not an attempt to attack the US or any other country. Let's hope it's for scientific purposes, because at this point in time, we have the coronavirus. We have a lot of things going on in the world. What we do not need is World War III. Okay, so now at this point, and I'm very happy to see that we were joined by Elizabeth, who is about to share with us her insight on the coronavirus in Germany. So without further ado, let us share the interview that I had yesterday with Ellie. Ellie Lucas is a graduate student at Zhejiang University, and we're very happy to have her join us today. So let's begin. Okay, so hi, Ellie, and thank you for joining us tonight. Well, actually, today, right now, you are in Germany, and in Germany right now, it's approximately, I think, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, right?
Yes, you're right.
Okay, so Ellie, please introduce to the audience a little bit about yourself and what you do and how I know you.
All right. So hello, Ronnie. First of all, long time no see.
Yeah, it's been a
So
while.
my name is Elisabeth, and I'm a 26 years old student from Zhejiang University. That's also how I actually got to know you, Ronnie. So we know each other from China. But currently, due to the situation, I'm finding myself back in Germany, living with my parents. So a little throwback in time.
Yeah, but I mean, that could be good, right? You don't have to worry about rent or about food or about anything, right?
Yeah, that is true. I'm not living the worst life, I have to admit, at the moment. More in detail, my family lives in Bavaria, so one of the 16 states of Germany, and it is also the state that is hit the worst from the pandemic at the moment. So with both like the highest numbers of infected people and also the highest numbers of death so far.
Oh, okay. So in your region, within Germany, you have the highest numbers in terms of the.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So
It is
sorry.
also due to the location of the state of Bavaria, because it also borders to Austria, Switzerland, and Czech Republic. So we're pretty close to Italy as well,
Okay.
which is like one of the most dangerous or affected places in
I
Europe.
would say that Italy, and later on our show, either this week or next week, we should have a few guests from Italy to explain to us and give us an update on the situation in their. No, Germany is one of the rare countries where the coronavirus has not really spread so rapidly. I think it's part of the German efficiency, right? You guys are good at handling pretty much everything. So can you please tell us what is the current situation now in Germany, aside from your particular region?
Yes. So, as you said, in Germany, the numbers of infected people are actually quite high, but the number of death is really low, which is supposed to be because of widespread testing, which is done a lot. So we try to track how people got affected in the first place or infected, so that these ways are cut. And also because of very strict social distancing measures, which were introduced around 5 weeks ago by now,
Okay.
and have also shown their efficiency. Plus, also our hospitals or medical services are pretty efficient and also sufficient, which is probably even more important.
Right. So basically, the hospitals that you have in Germany are staffed with, good doctors with the right resources, with enough resources to handle and to deal with this type of situation. And I think those are two fundamental factors, right? Okay.
Exactly.
Ellie, so how has the coronavirus personally affected you and your family during this time period?
Yeah, okay. So personally, me, as I mentioned before, I could not go back to my campus in China. I had to travel back home to Germany. But my dad, for example, he works as a freight forwarder in a freight forwarder company, and he still goes to work during the weekdays. So most of the people are actually working from home at the moment, but he is still allowed to go there. Nevertheless, since most of the companies have introduced shortened working hours simply due to the lack of economic growth or also demand at the moment, he is now also on obligated holiday at home, whereas my mother, who is selling cosmetics online and from home, her life hasn't changed much.
So the
Yet,
coronavirus hasn't really affected your mother, right?
no, not really. Yet, for example, which might be interesting, my sister, she is pregnant at the moment.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. You're about to
Thank
become
you
an aunt,
very much.
right?
So she lives in Munich with her boyfriend, and of course, for her, she's like one of the danger groups to be infected or more likely to be infected. So for her, especially, social distancing is very important, which means we haven't visited her in around 2 months. She hasn't seen anybody else but her boyfriend.
And she's pregnant. How far along is she?
Halfway through.
She's halfway through, so she's at the 4 and a half month mark, right?
Yes.
And the baby is expected to be born on which date?
In the end of July, as far as I'm concerned.
The end
Yeah.
of July. Okay, so hopefully by the time that little baby is born, this pandemic will be a thing of the past, right?
Let's hope so, even though German officials are a little bit more pessimistic about that. I guess that is also just the German mentality.
Right. So let me ask you. So when this pandemic was in its hardest hit time, you were currently out of China, right? Where were you at the time? Were you traveling?
Can you be a little bit more specific? What do you consider the hardest or the heat of the pandemic?
Basically, what I meant to say was you were not allowed to come back into China, or you voluntarily chose to stay in Germany.
Oh, okay. So at the time, in mid-January, I traveled to Cambodia
Okay.
and stayed there for 4 weeks and was supposed to go back to the campus then to China. But by the time I was supposed to fly back into China, they already said that students wouldn't be allowed back on campus if they have left already.
Yeah, because as you know, the Chinese government they recently issued a ban on most foreigners with visas and or permits from coming back into China. But
Yeah,
yeah, so I guess you were part of the group that just didn't come back in time. So
that is true.
but now you're expecting to come back if all goes well in September, correct?
Yes, I really hope so, since the situation is easing up in China and still handled very strictly here in Germany.
Okay.
I hope to be back in China in September.
We hope to have you back very, very soon. So, Ellie, in terms of your school tuition, how is that being handled? Is that being frozen, or is the school going to, give you back the money that you paid for the spring semester, or how does that work?
So Zhejiang University offers online courses, which means it is basically business as usual, only via online classes. So as far as I'm concerned, there are no refunds on the tuition. What they do offer is, for example, since I'm not allowed at the dormitory at the moment, but did pay for a single room there, the time period that I'm not allowed in the room right now is going to be, how to say this, is going to be like a little voucher for next year's
Okay. So
accommodation fee.
it'll be like a sort of credit that they can apply towards your dormitory fees for next year. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, Ellie, during this time that you've been stuck at home, what have you been doing to keep yourself busy, during this lockdown?
Well, to be honest, I think I've never been sporting more than I've been doing these days back home now. But of course, also some nice days of Netflix have been in there, and just trying to call some people, like keeping social, not just being by myself, and enjoy the beautiful weather outside because the rain is on a never seen low here.
No, really? Wow. And I was just gonna say, I mean, you look fantastic. I mean, you were always a very gorgeous girl, but now you look better than ever. So I think this coronavirus
Thank you.
has a silver lining, right? It has the ability to make already pretty girls even prettier.
That is a likely possibility, yes.
Okay, and Ellie, one last question before you're on your way to go run or do some other type of sport.
Yes.
What kind of advice, being from your country, a country that has handled this virus pretty well, what kind of advice would you give to other people from other countries who are in the midst of this pandemic and who might be feeling a little bit low?
Hmm. So, as for me, since I'm not knowing anybody who's seriously affected by the virus, I want to stress that because I'm sure other people might feel differently about it. But I guess it's just important to keep your body and mind busy and to stay healthy. So we'll all make the best out of the situation and just try not to get caught up with conspiracy theories or try to find help in radical political groups. Just be there for one another and focus on how you can be the best version of yourself at the moment and with the given circumstances.
Okay, great. I think those are very wise words, and I hope that most people can take those words into, can take heed in those words and, try to keep themselves busy during this time. Okay, well,
Exactly.
Ellie, I really appreciate the fact that you've taken time to talk to us today, and
Always.
I hope you keep safe. And I'm looking forward to seeing you again in September. Okay, so thank you, Ellie, for all your help. And I hope
Thank you very much.
if you have time tomorrow night to catch my show live and in person.
Yeah, that would be great. I hope to find some time too.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you, Ellie, and have a good day. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye. So everybody, so that was my exclusive interview with Ellie. So this next story is actually a story that gets me really angry, really, really angry. This is a case study in stupidity. So a Chinese mother watches her 3-month-old die while seeking help online. So let me tell you this story, and it actually really boils my blood that someone can be this stupid. So a Chinese mother had enrolled in one of those child raising classes that teach you how to raise your kid, right? And in this class, as in most classes, they encourage you, right? They encourage the parents to not immediately come to the aid of their child when he or she is crying, right? And I think this is a standard practice because you want to give the baby the opportunity to foster its own independence, right? And I think that is normal. So, however, as you can see from this picture, the baby has and this is a female baby, the baby had her leg caught on the side of the crib. So as such, she was not able to turn herself over. So she started crying. And she cried continuously for more than 2 hours. All right. So during this 2-hour time period, the mother took to social media, took to the group chat where this class was, and asked the advice of the teacher, of the class instructor, as well as her classmates on what she should do to help her daughter, right? Now, most people in the chat room told her that she should just, let the baby try to flip over on her own because this is what babies do. So they're capable of doing this. So she continued to let her baby cry. As a result, after 2 hours of nonstop crying, and I'm sure a lot of pain and torture for the baby, the infant suffocated. Okay, she suffocated and she unfortunately died. The mother has since deflected any sort of blame and placed blame instead on the instructor and on the course. So let me just give you a few snapshots of her conversation with her group chat while her baby was literally dying. So in this first one, she is asking like, hey, I'm going to roughly translate it. I mean, my Chinese is not great. So just bear with me, right? But here she's basically saying like, oh, my baby, she's flipped onto her stomach and she's crying. What should I do? Should I just let her be? And the instructor is saying, yeah, just let her be. It should be okay. And here on the bottom, she's also saying, okay, but I'm at my baby's bedroom door. She's listening in, and she's afraid that something might happen to her. Oh, and just so you know, this picture that I have on this PowerPoint, this is from a webcam or a baby monitor cam that the parents had placed in the baby's crib in order to monitor the baby. So she literally watched as her baby suffocated and died, right? So this is such a horrendous news. Okay, the next bit of conversation here. So finally, on the top part, the teacher or the instructor of the course, she responded, and she was like, "Oh, in this type of situation, just let the baby be, because the baby should be able to flip over by herself." And then the mother here, she responds, "All right, I'll just let her be." And then the teacher says, "All right, cool. Next up, here, the mother is once again, she's thanking the instructor. She's saying, "Oh, thank you for your help, and I will just do as you say. I will try to let my baby flip over on her own." Next up, we have some problems. So as you can see, I'm not sure, let me show you. From the first time that she messaged the group chat, it was around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. That was at the point where the baby started crying. So at that point, she started to message her group chat and express the fact that her baby was in some sort of discomfort and was crying. So that was at 1 o'clock. Up until now, when problem finally happened, this was at 3 o'clock. So at this point, the baby had already cried for almost 2 hours, for more than 2 hours, right? And she is saying that, what should I do in this type of situation? Like, I'm afraid, here on the first part, she was saying that, oh, my baby is not breathing. Her lips are turning blue. What should I do? At this point, why would you even need to ask people what you should do? You should, if you're a normal human being with a rational brain, or if with even half a brain, you would call the ambulance or 911, or in this case in China, I guess you would call 120. So here she's asking, my daughter, I think she might be dead. What do I do? Like the fact that she has to depend on other people in her group chat to tell her what to do boggles my mind. Like, how stupid are you? So finally, someone else in the group chat says, well, you should call the ambulance. And finally she did. But at that point, it was too late. It was too late. And what makes me even more angry about this is in this conversation, she's writing to the group chat, to this course group chat. And in the first line, she is saying, okay, so my baby has died. Can I still be a mother in the future? She's saying, my baby was just 3 months old. Why did God do this to me? And in the last line, she was saying, we have waited so long to have a daughter. So it's like, boo-hoo. Why is God punishing me? Why has God taken away my beautiful daughter after waiting so long to have a daughter? Oh, and mind you, this is actually not her first child. This is her second child. So she shouldn't have been so stupid. I mean, even if she was a first-time mother, I would still say she is stupid, because any person with half a brain would know that if your baby is, first of all, crying for 2 hours nonstop, something might be wrong. And upon a quick glance at that camera footage, you could see that her baby's leg was caught in the crib, right? Therefore, preventing the baby from flipping over. But the fact that she is now blaming the course, blaming everyone else, blaming God for her own stupidity is something that really boils my blood. So, so this is something that I wanted to report on, because this is something that is so stupid. And I hope that, if there are any people that are watching right now who has a newborn baby, to always be careful, right? If your baby is crying, if you hear them cry for a long period of time, there's probably something wrong, so you should check on them. Next story. This is an update on the story from last week. So as you know, and I'm not sure if some of the foreign friends here would know the story. But the president of Taobao has since last week been embroiled in a embarrassing personal, scandal. So, like many rich Chinese CEOs or business people, they tend to have as we say in the U.S., a side chick, right? They have a mistress, all right. So in this case, let me just show you a few pictures of Mr. Zhang Fan, right? He's actually a pretty young guy. I believe he's only like 35 or 36. To be at this age and to be able to be the president of Taobao is a pretty big deal. So he's a smart guy too, right? So this is Mr. Zhang Fan with his family, right? In the last picture, he is, I would presume, helping his children, take a bath. He's a very doting father. This is a family picture. He has 2 beautiful kids, a beautiful family, a beautiful wife. This is his wife. Every successful CEO needs a beautiful wife, right? And apart from that, what else do they need? They also need a beautiful mistress. So this is his mistress. However, this is not just any gold-digging mistress. This woman is actually a celebrity in her own right. She's a social media celebrity, and she actually owns a big share in a publicly traded company. So she is a businesswoman too. However, it has been revealed this week that, so the company that she owns a large stake in is called Ruhan. And this was the company in which Alibaba, surprisingly enough, invested a lot of money in. So now they're investigating as to whether or not this investment was due to the improper relationship between this lovely lady and the president of Taobao. If that were the case, then heads would roll. But so this is the mistress at the, I guess, at the opening party, or at the, at the ceremony in which the company went public. So it has been revealed that this week there was something new that happened in this story. So the wife, this was how the whole drama started. The wife had contacted the mistress on Weibo, which is, the Twitter of China, all right? And the wife had basically warned her, stay away from my husband, right? This is the last time I'm gonna tell you to do so, stay away, or it's not gonna be good news. So they go back and forth, all right? They go back and forth, and these are some of the comments from users or from, netizens, right? They've even included Jack Ma. They've asked him, Mr. Ma, are you gonna do something about your employee? He has a mistress, you should really do something about this. So after all this, what does the president of Taobao do? Does he say sorry to his wife? Does he make a public apology? Well, he actually does say sorry. He apologizes publicly for bringing this embarrassment and shame to Alibaba for causing the company this type of problem, right? So he's apologized publicly to the company for doing so, but he hasn't apologized to his wife. In fact, what he did this week is actually rather shocking. He showed her the door. This week, he voluntarily filed for divorce from the wife. Can you imagine that? He goes around, has a mistress, makes a fool of his wife in public, then shows her the curb, shows her the door. So, I mean, for some people who view this story, they might think this guy's a gangster. I think he's just a grade A bastard, right? So this is what he's done. So that's a little update on this scandalous story. On our final story today, and I'm not really sure this is even a story, if it's even newsworthy, but because I have friends who have contacted me this week, they told me, oh, Ronnie, you have to report on this story because, this is such big news, big news. So I said, okay, fine. On my show, I will report on any news that you think is newsworthy. So this is it. Mainstream leftist media takes Trump literally and injects itself with disinfectant. That's actually, it's a joke. But basically on Friday, what happened was Trump had been giving his daily coronavirus news briefing, in which he stated that, he was brainstorming out loud and talking to the doctors on his medical team on whether or not, they can maybe find a way to apply disinfectant into the cure, because he noticed, and many people have noticed, that disinfectant has been very apt at killing this virus. So he said this off the cuff. And immediately on Friday, some of the leftist media outlets and their allies caused yet another frenzy and alleged that President Trump had advised the nation to inject themselves with bleach, with disinfectant, as a way to combat this virus. Okay, so many media outlets spent a full news cycle reporting on this urgent news. And this, I think, my friends, is just another example of media bias and their ongoing, never-ending crusade to hurt this president. It's now clear that the left would very happily welcome the country's demise if it meant that this president would lose his re-election bid in 2020. I can, comment on this all day long, right? But I think it's important for you people, for everyone who's watching, to actually watch what he said, right? Let's watch the clip. It's a very short clip. You can watch the clip, and you can judge for yourself if President Trump actually told people to inject themselves with bleach and disinfectant, all right?
So supposing we hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light, and I think you said that hasn't been checked, but you're going to test it. And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do either through the skin or in some other way. And I think you said you're going to test that too. Sounds interesting. Right, and then I see the disinfectant, where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number on the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me.
Today's program. And once again, if you're interested in joining me for my VIP one-on-one sessions, I encourage you to contact me directly, either through the group chat or through my WeChat. Okay, so you can scan me. This is my personal WeChat. You can scan me to contact me if you have any questions, or if you'd like to ask about the VIP sessions. And once again, I want to thank you for joining me today on Real Talk with Ronnie. And once again, thank Elizabeth, thank Michael for giving us this interview. Next week, we will have more interviews. And next week, I believe our featured guest will be from Italy. So next week, we will hear some people from Italy, and they will share with us their thoughts and their experiences right now with the coronavirus in their country. So I hope to see you all next week, okay? So good night and God bless you. See you all next Sunday at our normal scheduled time at 8 p.m., okay? Thank you. Bye-bye.